Hello again! Today I will start by explaining the greenhouse gases, what they are, and what makes them so bad. Greenhouse gases are gases that get trapped in our atmosphere after they're produced. This means that the heat that our Earth stores during the day from the sun will get trapped, which causes our Earth to warm up. If the GHGs wouldn't be present, the average temperature on Earth would be minus 18 degrees. Because there are so many different types of GHGs, they will be converted into a CO2 equivalent. This means that we multiply each amount of gas by a factor that shows how much heat it stores compared to CO2. CH4, aka methane, can be up to 85 times as polluting as CO2 and will therefore be multiplied by 85, for example. This total amount gives us the potential for global warming. Global warming leads to rising sea levels, destruction of certain areas, and of course, to the great forest fires we've been seeing lately. If things continue the way they are, the Earth will warm up by 2 degrees. If the Earth warms up by 1 degree, 1 billion people will face water stress, meaning that their access to fresh water is limited, and we face the risk of extinction of certain amphibians. If the Earth warms up 2 degrees, this means 3 billion people will face water stress and 20 to 30% of all species are under high risk of extinction. The goal of the Paris Agreement in 2015 was to limit GHG emissions, which meant that global warming wouldn't increase beyond the 2-degree limit. It was the first agreement that targeted to limit global warming with a clear set point, even aiming for 1.5 degrees. But the climate action plans that the participating countries entered were not ambitious enough to make sure the global warming would stop at 1 degree. The 2-degree cape is getting more and more realistic. But you get my point. Now let's do something about this. For the first dishes, we will therefore compare their global warming potential and have a look at what the effect is. We will tell you what the amount of CO2 the dish has in compared to when it would be made with animal products, and also highlight what part of the life cycle has the most impact. For this dish, it was the use of cheese, but more specifically, the animal feed required. In order to make it a bit more tangible, we also compared these values to the amount of kilometers you could drive by car that produces the same amount of CO2. Agriculture takes up about 24% of total greenhouse gases. This is mostly caused by farm animals and fisheries, which accounts for about 1/3 of this. This is partly due to the methane production caused by the digestive process of cattle, for example, and partly by the CO2 produced from using fossil fuels to manage the fields and the fishing vessels. Crop production accounts for 26% because of nitrous oxide in fertilizers, methane produced by rice production, and again, CO2 from the use of fossil fuels in machinery. Don't forget that about 1/4 of these crops is used as food for livestock. Land use, both for crops and cattle, accounts for 24%. This is because taking away trees means taking away their possibility to process CO2. The supply chain accounts for 18%, meaning the transport, packaging, and all of the energy needed for retail. Contradictory to what most people think, transport does not play that much of a role in this. This means that, regarding global warming, it is more important to consider what you eat than where it comes from. Eating locally is of course important to reduce the amount of packaging, but don't worry, that will be explained in a different episode. So what are the major changes we should make considering global warming? 1. Reduce the amount of meat and dairy you eat. This does not mean that you have to eliminate it, but by reducing the amount we can already get quite far. 2. Promote lower carbon meat and dairy production. Since we won't be ruling out eating meat entirely anytime soon, we have to think of ways to make producing it more eco-friendly. 3. Improve crop yields. The Netherlands, for example, are doing a great job in intensifying crop yield. Intensifying means less trees get cut down, so more CO2 can be processed. 4. Reduce food waste. We didn't really discuss this yet, but 1/3 of all food around the globe gets wasted. This means that 1/3 of GHG emissions are unnecessary to begin with. That is why we have to make changes to reduce this waste, but also why packaging can be good and important, at least if it's done the right way. But that's it for today. Stay tuned for our upcoming episode on water use. You will learn all about water footprints, water stress, and how scientists have to focus on the next important thing, reducing the water footprint of chocolate. Bye!